All right, let's dive in today with a look at AI and quantum computing. And to help us make sense of it all, we're going to be drawing on some insights from Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google.
Yeah, not just a tech exec, though. The guy's got this deep background in electrical engineering and computer science.
Right, so he's not just a businessman, he really gets the tech. And now he's focused on the future with Schmidt Futures and the Special Competitive Studies Project.
That's right, trying to figure out where all of this is headed.
So we're talking about someone who's really thinking hard about where technology is going and what it all means for everyone.
What always strikes me about Schmidt is how his own story kind of mirrors the whole rise of computing.
Yeah, it's a real from nerd to titan kind of journey, right?
Totally.
I mean, think about it. The guy starts out building model rockets and trains as a kid, like classic boy nerd stuff.
Yeah.
Then, bam, at 15, he falls in love with computers. And that passion just takes him all the way, from programmer to leading Sun Microsystems and then, of course, the whole Google chapter.
It's wild how he went from, kind of fighting the establishment to becoming a major force in shaping the tech world.
It really makes you think about how innovation can lead you down some unexpected paths.
For sure.
And speaking of unexpected, one of the things that really got me thinking from Schmidt's work, this bold claim he makes about AI boosting everyone's productivity, like 10,000 times. Yeah. 10,000. I mean, is that even conceivable?
It's a number that's hard to even wrap your head around. I mean, what Schmidt's really talking about here is not just doing things faster, but a total shift in the way we work.
He gave this example of a recent hackathon where a team used AI to create a virtual drone that could be controlled by voice commands. And he said, just a few years ago, a project like that would have taken a team at Google, weeks, maybe even months.
It's amazing how fast things are moving in the AI world. And honestly, how hard it is for us to even grasp the potential impact.
So are we really talking about a world where everyone's suddenly 10,000 times more efficient? Does work as we know it just become, obsolete?
Those are the questions, aren't they? And to be honest, economists don't even have the models to really account for this kind of change. We're in completely uncharted territory here.
Okay, but hold on. If AI is supposed to be so amazing, why are there still things it struggles with? I've heard it's not that great at, really complex math.
That's true. The AI models we have now, like the large language models, the LLMs, they do have limitations.
Right.
But it's important to remember that AI isn't just one thing. There are tons of specialized tools being developed for all kinds of fields.
Oh, I see.
For example, there are systems being designed specifically for physics research.
So instead of one all-powerful AI, we're talking about a bunch of specialized tools, each with its own strength.
Exactly. Think of it like a toolbox, right?
Makes sense.
You wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a light bulb. You'd pick the right tool for the job. Same idea with AI.
Yeah, I get it. But there's still this question of creativity, right? Could AI ever make that kind of leap that, say, Einstein made with general relativity?
That gets to the heart of what AI can become, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right now, AI is really good at analyzing huge data sets like we see with language processing. But could it ever get to a point where it can make those creative connections, the kind of intuitive leaps that we think of as human genius?
It's a big question. Schmidt actually thinks that as AI gets more advanced, it might develop what he calls polymathic tendencies, basically becoming multidisciplinary, able to make links between different fields.
That's a fascinating idea, an AI that can not only analyze data, but actually synthesize it, drawing connections between things that seem totally separate to us.
It's pretty mind-blowing. But is it even realistic? Are the LLMs we have now, are they a stepping stone to that kind of multidisciplinary AI? Or are they, a dead end?
It's a debate that even the experts are having, but Schmidt seems to be putting his money on continued growth. He's talking about AI systems that are 1,000, even 10,000 times more powerful than what we have now.
So we might really be on the verge of an AI revolution that dwarfs anything we've seen before. It's both incredibly exciting and, a little terrifying.
Totally agree. And that leads to a darker side of AI that Schmidt himself has been pretty vocal about.
Okay, let's get into that. What are we talking about here?
Well, Schmidt's raised some serious concerns about the potential for AI to be weaponized, especially when it comes to social media and, information warfare.
Right, and I've read about that. AI being used to create fake news, deep fakes, all that stuff, to manipulate public opinion.
Exactly. Imagine a world where you can't even tell what's real and what's been fabricated, where social media is flooded with AI-generated content that plays on your emotions, exploits your biases, And just erodes any trust you have in institutions.
And this isn't some far-off dystopia, right? We're already seeing examples of AI being used to spread misinformation and sow chaos.
Oh, absolutely. And with all these big elections coming up in India, the US, Europe, the stakes are higher than ever. AI-powered disinformation campaigns could seriously disrupt democracies.
It's a scary thought. So what can be done? Does Schmidt offer any solutions to counter this threat?
He does. He talks about a few potential safeguards, like using watermarks to flag AI-generated content, or stricter regulations for social media platforms, and maybe even ways to verify user identities without making them public, like what ride-sharing apps do.
Those sound like good steps, but are they enough? I mean, technology is always evolving. Won't the bad guys just find ways around these safeguards?
That's the problem, isn't it? It's this constant cat and mouse game between those trying to protect us and those trying to exploit the system.
It's like we're fighting fire with fire, using AI to fight the malicious use of AI.
It kind of is. Schmitz even talked about the need for AI fighting AI, where good AI is used to detect and neutralize bad AI.
So it's like an AI arms race, a digital battlefield where the lines are constantly shifting.
It's a pretty sobering thought. Makes you wonder if we're really prepared for this kind of technological warfare.
Yeah, that's heavy stuff. But let's shift gears for a moment, talk about something a little more hopeful. One of the things I found really inspiring about Schmidt's work was his vision for education.
Oh yeah, his ideas about personalized AI tutors are really interesting.
He talks about creating AI systems that can actually adapt to each student's learning style, their pace, their needs. Imagine a world where every student has their own personal tutor available 24/7 to guide them through their studies, answer their questions, provide personalized feedback.
It's a powerful idea, right? And it lines up with what we've learned about how people actually learn. Traditional education is often so one-size-fits-all, but in reality, everyone learns differently.
Exactly. Some people are visual learners, some are auditory learners, some learn best by doing. AI could tailor the whole learning experience to each individual's strengths and weaknesses.
That's the idea. Schmidt emphasizes that we need to gather data on how people learn, something that traditional education hasn't really focused on. Then use that data to train AI systems to become more effective, more personalized tutors.
And these AI tutors could be available to everyone, regardless of their background, right? It's like democratizing access to quality education.
That's the vision. He believes everyone should have the chance to reach their full potential. And he sees AI as a key tool for making that happen.
It's so exciting to think about. But it also makes you wonder, what happens to the role of human teachers in this AI-powered future?
That's a crucial question. But Schmidt doesn't think AI will replace teachers. He sees it more as augmenting their abilities, freeing them up from tedious tasks like grading, so they can focus on what they do best, like mentoring, inspiring, fostering critical thinking.
So it's not about AI versus teachers. It's about AI and teachers working together to create a better, more engaging learning environment for all students.
That's the hope. And it speaks to a bigger theme that runs through all of Schmidt's work. AI is a tool to empower humanity, not to replace it.
I like that. Okay, so we've talked about how AI could disrupt and enhance education, but what about its impact on our health?
Schmidt's equally passionate about the potential of AI in healthcare. He sees it as a total game changer, transforming everything from how we diagnose diseases to how we treat them, even how we discover new drugs.
So let's break that down. What are some of the specific ways he sees AI impacting healthcare?
Well, he talks about a future where AI analyzes your medical history, your genetic information, your lifestyle, to create a personalized health plan, predict potential health risks.
Wow.
It's like having a super intelligent doctor who knows you inside and out, constantly monitoring your health and giving you personalized recommendations.
They're incredible.
AI could also be used to develop much more accurate diagnostic tools, allowing for earlier detection of diseases, more effective treatments.
Right.
And in the area of drug discovery, AI could help us find new drugs and therapies much faster, potentially leading to breakthroughs in fighting things like cancer and Alzheimer's.
It sounds like AI could completely change our whole approach to healthcare, shifting from reacting to problems to preventing them in the first place.
Exactly. It's about moving from a reactive model to a proactive one.
That's pretty amazing. But with all this talk about AI revolutionizing healthcare, I can't help but think about the ethical considerations.
Oh, absolutely. Those are crucial questions that we need to think through carefully.
Okay, we're actually running out of time for this part of our deep dive, but there's one more thing I want to at least touch on before we wrap up. Quantum computing. It's a buzzword we hear all the time, but I'll be honest, I'm still not quite sure I get it. What is it and why should we care?
It's definitely a complex topic, but at its core, quantum computing uses the principles of quantum mechanics to do calculations in a totally different way than traditional computers.
So it's not just a faster computer, it's a completely different way of computing.
Exactly. And while it's still in its early stages, quantum computing has the potential to revolutionize tons of fields, from material science to drug discovery to cryptography.
I've heard some pretty wild claims, like quantum computing will make our current computers look like, Stone Age tools. Is that just hype, or is there some truth to it?
There's definitely some truth to it. Quantum computers can potentially solve certain types of problems that are impossible for even the most powerful classical computers.
Wow.
But it's important to remember that quantum computing isn't about replacing classical computing. It's more like a complementary technology. It'll likely be used for specific tasks where its unique capabilities can shine.
So it's about finding the right tool for the job. Sometimes that tool will be a quantum computer, sometimes it'll be a classical computer.
Exactly. Now, one area where quantum computing could have a huge impact is machine learning, which we've been talking about quite a bit today. Quantum computers could potentially speed up the training of AI models significantly, leading to faster development and even more powerful capabilities.
So quantum computing could supercharge AI development. That's a pretty wild thought. But what about practical applications? When will we actually see quantum computers being used to solve real-world problems?
That's the million-dollar question. There have been some promising developments, but widespread adoption of quantum computing is probably still a few years out. Okay.
But there are certain industries, like material science and drug discovery, where we could see quantum computers being used for research and development pretty soon.
It's fascinating to think about the possibilities, but before we get too carried away with the future, I want to take a step back and talk about the present. What about the state of classical computing today? Is it really hitting its limits, like some people are saying?
That's a great question. And the answer is, it's complicated. It's true that we're getting close to the physical limits of what classical computer chips can do.
Right.
But there are still tons of innovations happening, like in 3D chip stacking, where you stack multiple layers of chips on top of each other to increase processing power.
So it's like building skyscrapers of chips.
Exactly. And there are also advances in memory technology, like HBM, high bandwidth memory, which allows for much faster data transfer between the processor and memory.
So even though we're reaching the limits of individual transistors, we're finding clever ways to pack more processing power into a smaller space. That's right. And these innovations will probably keep pushing the boundaries of classical computing for quite a while.
That's good to hear. It's not like classical computing is going to vanish overnight.
Definitely not. And it's important to remember that even as quantum computing develops, classical computing will still be essential for a lot of tasks.
It's like having a toolbox with different tools for different jobs.
Perfect analogy. Sometimes you need a hammer, sometimes you need a screwdriver, and sometimes you need a quantum computer.
I like it.
Just like a skilled craftsman knows which tool to use. We'll need to learn when to use classical computing and when to use quantum computing.
That makes sense.
So, before the break, we were talking about how quantum computing might shake things up in the world of machine learning. It's not just about raw speed, though.
Right. It's about using these quantum principles to actually change the algorithms themselves. It's like, what if instead of teaching computers to think like us, we taught them to think in a completely different way?
Exactly. Schmidt uses this term quantum-inspired algorithms. These are algorithms designed for, regular computers, but they take inspiration from how quantum mechanics work.
Oh, interesting.
He gave the example of this being used in drug discovery, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it seems like we don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes just looking at things from a new angle can lead to breakthroughs.
Absolutely.
It strikes me that Schmidt always brings it back to the human element. Like, even with all this advanced tech, it's still us humans calling the shots.
Yeah, he's very clear about that. Even with the most sophisticated AI, human oversight is essential. These systems should be helping us, not replacing us.
Okay, but let's be real. A lot of people are worried about AI taking their jobs. Is that a legitimate fear, or is it just hype?
It's a tough question, and one that Schmidt doesn't shy away from. He acknowledges that some jobs will definitely be automated, just like machines replaced a lot of manual labor in the past.
Right.
But he also points out that every technological revolution has created new jobs, new industries.
Ones that we couldn't have even imagined before.
It's kind of like trying to picture the internet before it existed.
Exactly. Like, who could have predicted social media managers or YouTubers back then?
Exactly. And just as the internet disrupted traditional media, AI is going to shake up industries we think of as stable today.
That's a good point.
The key, as Schmidt sees it, is adaptability. We need to be lifelong learners, always updating our skills and ready to jump on new opportunities.
So it's not about resisting change. It's about learning to ride the wave.
I like that.
Use the waves to our advantage.
Schmidt actually uses the analogy of a carpenter. Power tools didn't replace carpenters, they made them more efficient, allowed them to create more complex things.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. It shifts the perspective from AI as a threat to AI as a tool that makes us better.
Exactly. Now, all that being said, Schmidt doesn't sugarcoat things. He talks about the potential downsides of AI too, especially the ethical challenges.
Right. We've seen all those headlines about bias in algorithms, like those facial recognition systems that were less accurate with people of color. That's a huge problem.
It is, and it highlights a fundamental issue. AI systems are only as good as the data we feed them. If the data is biased, the AI will be biased.
So we need to be super careful about the data used to train these systems and constantly check them to make sure they're not perpetuating harmful biases.
Absolutely. Schmidt's a big advocate for transparency and accountability in AI development. We need to understand how these systems are built, what data they're trained on, and what steps are being taken to ensure fairness and accuracy.
Yeah, it's like holding any powerful institution accountable. We can't just blindly trust them to do the right thing.
Right. And that brings us to another concern Schmidt has raised, the role of government in regulating AI. He's pretty skeptical about whether governments can keep up with how fast AI is developing.
Yeah, he's argued that governments tend to react to problems, not prevent them, waiting for a crisis to hit before taking action.
Right. He's even said that real solutions probably won't come until after a major AI-related incident.
Like, we're waiting for a car crash before we decide to wear seatbelts.
Exactly.
So what can we do? Just sit around and wait for the inevitable? Or is there a way to be more proactive about shaping the future of AI?
Schmidt thinks we need to start a global conversation about AI, one that includes everyone, not just the tech experts. We have to think about the long-term consequences and develop a framework for responsible AI development that ensures it's used for good.
So it's a conversation that needs to happen everywhere, from tech companies to governments to individuals. We all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI.
We do. Now, while we're talking about government and regulation, there's another point Schmidt makes that I find really interesting. He says a lot of people in positions of power don't really understand the technology they're supposed to be regulating.
Oh, that's scary.
Right. It's like asking someone who's never driven a car to write traffic laws.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense.
And this knowledge gap could have some serious consequences. How can we expect policymakers to regulate something they don't even understand?
It's a bit unsettling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is there any way to bridge that gap, like some kind of AI crash course for policymakers?
That's an interesting idea. Maybe some kind of program that gives them the basics so they can at least make informed decisions about AI.
It seems crucial, especially when you think about how AI could impact everything, from national security to the economy to social justice.
Absolutely. Now, let's switch gears again for a minute and talk about some of the more positive applications of AI. Schmidt seems particularly excited about its potential in healthcare.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier, but I'd love to hear more about the specifics.
Well, he paints this picture of a future where AI analyzes your entire medical history, your genetic data, your lifestyle, everything, and then it creates a completely personalized health plan just for you. Predicts potential health risks, even recommends preventative measures.
So it's like having your own personal health advisor 24/7. Instead of waiting to get sick, we could use AI to help people stay healthy in the first place.
It's about taking preventative health care to a whole new level.
That's amazing.
AI could also help us develop much more accurate diagnostic tools so we can catch diseases earlier when they're easier to treat.
That's huge, especially for something like cancer.
Absolutely.
What about drug discovery? I heard AI is already speeding up the process of developing new drugs.
That's right. AI can analyze enormous data sets of molecular structures and biological pathways to find potential drug candidates that humans might have missed. This could lead to breakthroughs for diseases that have stumped us for years.
So AI could help us cure diseases that we once thought were incurable.
That's the hope.
That's incredible.
And it's not just about physical health either. Schmidt sees AI playing a big role in mental health, too. He talks about AI-powered apps that can provide therapy and support to people struggling with anxiety, depression, things like that.
Oh, that's interesting. Mental health is often stigmatized, and it can be hard for people to get the help they need.
Exactly. These AI-powered apps could make mental health care more accessible and affordable.
That's a great point. So we've covered a lot here. AI's impact on jobs, the ethical concerns, the need for regulation, its applications in healthcare. It seems like AI is getting to touch every aspect of our lives. But what about its connection to quantum computing, the other big technology we've been discussing?
It's a good question, and one that Schmidt has thought a lot about. He sees AI and quantum computing as complementary technologies, each with its own strengths and weaknesses.
So it's not about one replacing the other, but about figuring out how to use them together.
Exactly. And while quantum computing is still in its early days, Schmidt believes it has the potential to really accelerate AI development.
Okay, how so?
Well, for one thing, quantum computers could help us develop completely new algorithms for training AI models, algorithms that are much more efficient than anything we have now.
So we could train AI systems much faster, and they could be even more powerful.
That's the idea. Another possibility is using quantum computers to simulate really complex systems, systems that are too difficult or even impossible to simulate on classical computers.
So we could gain a much deeper understanding of how the world works, and then use that knowledge to create more sophisticated AI systems.
Right. Now, while Schmidt is optimistic about the potential of AI and quantum computing, he's also aware of the risks. He's even talked about the possibility of an AI apocalypse, where AI becomes so intelligent that it poses a threat to humanity.
Okay, that's a bit scary.
It's definitely something to think about. It's a topic that's been debated for years. But the important thing to remember is that AI is a tool that we create. We control how it's developed and used.
So it comes back to responsible AI development. Making sure we build these technologies with ethics in mind and putting safeguards in place to prevent misuse.
Exactly. Now, switching gears one last time, I want to touch on this idea of a global conversation about AI that Schmidt keeps talking about. Why does he think that's so important?
Yeah, I've heard him mention that too. It's like he's saying that AI isn't just a technology issue, it's a societal issue.
Exactly. The choices we make about AI today will have a huge impact on the future of humanity. And we need to make those choices together, not just a small group of tech experts.
So it's about making the conversation about AI more democratic, making sure everyone's voice is heard.
That's the goal. And it's a conversation that needs to happen everywhere, from local communities to national governments to international organizations. We all have a stake in the future of AI.
That's a big task.
It is, but it's essential if we're going to navigate this new era of AI responsibly.
Well, we're back. And as we wrap up this deep dive into Eric Schmidt's thoughts on AI and quantum computing, it really does feel like we're standing on the precipice of something huge.
Yeah, it's not just the technology itself, It's like we're at this point where these advances could actually change what it means to be human.
That's a great way to put it. We're writing a new chapter in human history, and AI is holding the pen. But the big question is, what kind of story are we going to write?
Well, Schmidt talks about this as a moment of incredible opportunity, but also incredible responsibility. We have this power to use AI to solve some of the world's biggest problems, but we also have to make sure it's used ethically for the good of everyone.
It's a tightrope walk, isn't it? How do we use AI's power without letting it control us? How do we make sure it makes our lives better, not worse?
Schmidt keeps coming back to this idea of responsible AI development, building AI systems that align with human values. Systems that are fair, transparent, and accountable to the people they're supposed to serve.
Okay, so it's not enough to just build cool tech. We have to build tech that actually serves humanity. But technology changes so fast. What seems ethical today might not seem so ethical tomorrow. How do we create rules for AI that can keep up with that?
It's a tough challenge, no doubt. Schmidt suggests that maybe instead of rigid rules, we need a more flexible approach, one that's based on core principles like fairness, transparency, accountability, and using those principles as our guide for how we develop and use AI.
So like a moral compass for AI to help us navigate through uncharted territory.
Exactly. And that compass needs to be constantly adjusted as we learn more about AI. And as new ethical challenges pop up, it's an ongoing conversation, really.
That makes sense. So let's get a bit more concrete. What are some areas where Schmidt sees AI making a real difference in the near future?
He's really bullish on the potential of AI in healthcare, education, and climate change. He sees these as areas where AI can truly amplify what humans can do and help us tackle some of the toughest problems we face.
Let's start with healthcare. We talked about it a bit earlier, but I'd love to dig a little deeper.
Sure, Schmidt envisions a future where AI can personalize healthcare, tailoring treatments to each person based on their genes, lifestyle, all that. He talks about AI-powered tools that can diagnose diseases earlier and more accurately. Even AI-assisted surgery that's more precise and has fewer complications.
Wow. So it's like combining the best of human intuition with the power of data analysis and machine learning.
Exactly. And it's not just about treating diseases, it's about preventing them. Schmidt sees AI being used to predict health risks and recommend preventative measures, all based on your individual data.
So instead of waiting to get sick, we could use AI to help people stay healthy.
That's the goal. It's a huge shift in how we think about healthcare, from reactive to proactive.
That's pretty amazing. Now, what about education? We talked about AI tutors before, but I'm curious to hear more about Schmidt's vision for how AI can change the way we learn.
He wants to move away from this one-size-fits-all model of education, the way it's been for centuries. He's talking about a system where AI personalizes learning for every student, adapting the content and the pace to their individual needs and how they learn best.
So every student gets personal AI tutor.
That's the idea. The AI can guide them, answer their questions, give them feedback tailored to them.
And this could all be delivered through all sorts of platforms, right? Interactive simulations, virtual reality field trips, AI-powered games.
Absolutely. Schmidt sees AI making learning more engaging and immersive, something that caters to different learning styles and keeps kids excited about learning.
It sounds like a pretty radical change from the traditional classroom. Do you think the education system is ready for that?
It's a good question. There will definitely be some growing pains as schools and universities try to adapt, but the potential benefits are huge, so it's definitely worth exploring.
Okay, let's tackle the big one. Climate change. It's often called an existential threat, and it can feel pretty overwhelming. How does Schmidt see AI helping us deal with this massive challenge?
He's optimistic but realistic. He sees AI as a powerful tool, but not a magic solution. He talks about using AI to analyze huge amounts of climate data, to build more accurate models and make better predictions.
So basically using AI to get a clearer picture of what's happening to the planet and what might happen in the future.
Exactly. AI can help us spot trends, predict different scenarios, and come up with better strategies.
For both mitigating climate change and adapting to it.
Right.
But it's not just about analysis and prediction, is it? Schmidt also talks about using AI to invent new technologies that can help us reduce our impact on the environment.
Absolutely. He sees AI playing a role in everything, from making energy use more efficient, to developing better renewable energy sources, to even creating technologies that can capture and store carbon.
It's like we're using the power of computing itself to fight climate change. It's encouraging to hear someone like Schmidt, with all his tech expertise, talking about AI in this way.
It definitely gives you hope, but it's crucial to remember that AI is just a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. Ultimately, it's up to us, the humans who create and use these technologies, to make the right choices.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Eric Schmidt's world of AI and quantum computing, what's the main takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about as they encounter AI in their everyday lives?
I think the biggest message is this. We're at a turning point. The decisions we make about AI now will have a massive impact on the future of humanity. We need to approach this technology with a sense of wonder, but also with caution. We have to embrace its potential to make our lives better, but also be aware of the risks. And most importantly, we need to have a global conversation about AI. A conversation that includes everyone from all walks of life, to make sure AI is developed and used in a way that benefits everyone.
Well said. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's a complex and constantly changing field, but we hope this conversation has given you some things to ponder as we all navigate this exciting and challenging new world of AI.